Good afternoon. Question. Have you ever seen a situation where everything is running perfectly until one small tiny thing goes wrong and then your entire system at work collapses? So that's exactly what happens in manufacturing when you try to run lean and then something happens. So in 2020, when major manufacturers shut down had to shut down production lines because not because their machines broke or because people didn't show up for work, but because one supplier failed to deliver parts on time because of the pandemic. Okay, so why did it happen then? Why would they shut down? Why didn't they have enough stuff? It's because those companies were running a lean manufacturing system with almost no backup inventory. Now a lot of people hear the word lean and manufacturing and they immediately think it's the best way to run their business. But what does it actually mean though? So it's to focus on eliminating waste, is what lean says, right? Like inventory, time, efficiencies, and it sounds great, right? And sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's not. I've worked in manufacturing for a long time, where lean's used every day. I've seen the benefits, but I've also seen the problems, and sometimes I don't think the benefits outweigh the risk, right? So a lot of times I think companies shouldn't run it. They should not automatically adopt it because it can create supply chain risk, increase pressure on employees, making them run so many parts every single hour, every single minute, right? And people get stressed out. Different people work different speeds, right? So you try to hold everybody accountable for the same amount of production when that's not reality. And it fails when it's not completely implemented right, you know? It often relies on what's called just-in-time inventory, right? Which means you're trying to save money by not having that much inventory, so you're getting your suppliers to ship it to you, right before you're going to lose it. And what happens when a tiny little hiccup happens, or they have a problem, or they have a quality problem, or who knows, COVID hits, right? It can shut your entire company down. And that's kind of what happened during COVID. They depended on parts coming in just when they need them, and they had shipping delays. Suppliers shut down. Some companies wasn't essential, so they had no product, and had to stop production, and obviously cost hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dollars, right? And just one delay on one tiny shipment, can shut a whole factory down. And when that happens, obviously people can't work. Work orders can't get filled. People can't pay their bills. They start looking for other jobs. People start leaving their job. Um, all of those things happen when you try to run a lean system in your facility. Um, Ultimately, they're designed to maximize efficiency, meaning every step is timed and measured. And in some of those things, employees are expected to hit strict production targets with no downtime, right? Or without going to the bathroom without somebody filling in for you. So, just imagine working an entire shift where every single second is tracked, every single part is, measured, and you're expected to perform 100% the same way every single day, right? It just doesn't work, and it creates pressure that leads to stress, fatigue, and burnout, and finally you end up losing and employees. So it often fails in companies, especially if it's not done well. You know, Companies try to copy some of the big guys, the Toyotas and stuff, right? And think, hey, I can do this, but they really can't. They don't have the infrastructure and the stuff that some of those other companies that seem to make it successful um, have, right? So a company might cut inventory to try to be lean, but they haven't improved their processes. They don't have the supply chain and the backup and the ability to be able to do it when a small hiccup happens. And I don't care what business you're in, small hiccups happen every day, all the time, right? Um, just imagine, right? A production floor, workers are waiting on stuff, supervisors are scrambling, problems, schedules behind. It just doesn't work, right? So lean isn't really the best way to run a business, right? Um, you know, what? Why do you have to have less inventory, right? You're going to use it, so what's the purpose of, if you've got 10 or 20 or $100,000 worth of material sitting for a month. What does that really equate to? You know, if that money was in the bank, how much would interest would you really earn? Is it worth the risk of, you know, shutting your entire line down, or shutting your entire business down because you want to try to have a little bit more money in the bank to gain some interest over a couple months? It's just not worth it. It creates risk, pressure, and ultimately can fail. You know, it cuts into your stability, right? Your customers aren't going to depend on you anymore, so they're going to go try to find it somewhere else. It cuts into your people and their performance. You know, in the end, I mean, it can save you money if it's done right, but with all the risk and everything that there is, me personally, I don't think it's a system you need to be involved in. I think you should trust your gut and run the business how you see fit, and learn over time and keep the inventories you need, to make sure that you can provide a quality product to your customer. All right, thanks.